All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on this later evening edition of our Stacking Federal Tax Credits with Rebates to Maximize Savings webinar. My name's Sean Orgel Olson, and I lead the marketing team at Silicon Valley Clean Energy. I will be your presenter today. All right. So we're going to be sharing a lot of different rebates and programs we have, as well as information about the sunsetting tax credits. But just in case you need an extra bonus, at the end of the presentation, we'll share a quick feedback survey. You can fill it out for a chance to win a $100 bill credit. So please stay with us. We're not going to take the full hour. We expect it to take closer to 45 minutes or so, and we have lots of valuable information to share with you today. We did just give out the bill credit from the webinar last week today. So we're pretty speedy on that and definitely appreciate your input. Just a quick reminder on webinar protocols. Y'all should be in listen-only mode. So keeping mics on mute, please. And you can put your questions in the Q&A box at any time during the presentation or after, and we will go through those questions. As the presentation is going on, members of the team from Silicon Valley Clean Energy will answer those questions, and we'll also go through any final ones live together at the conclusion of this call. And the recording of this presentation will be sent to you in a follow-up email that I'll send out most likely tomorrow. All right, so here's what we're planning to cover this evening. First, we're going to do a very quick introduction of Silicon Valley Clean Energy, who we are. Then we're going to dive into benefits of electric upgrades and energy savings. And then we'll talk about maximizing your savings. So we'll talk about the tax credits and the rebates for electrifying your home and car. We'll also talk about tax credits for solar and battery systems. And then we'll close things out with the Q&A and our survey. All right, so who are we? Silicon Valley Clean Energy, we're your community-owned, not-for-profit electricity provider. So if you live in one of the communities shown on the map, you're getting clean electricity from us. And we were formed in 2016 when cities in the county came together and decided to basically create an entity that would provide more local control over where our energy comes from. And so from the start, our mission has been to fight climate change by accelerating clean energy adoption. And because we're a not-for-profit public agency, we reinvest our revenues that we receive back into the community. And so we've dedicated over 116 million back to customer rebates, offers, and services like the ones we're going to discuss today. All right, and how does it work? You might be wondering, well, what about PG&E? Where do they fit in? So SVCE buys and builds energy supplies from clean sources. So we procure the electricity. PG&E still owns and maintains the infrastructure, so they deliver the electricity over their poles and wires. And they also handle customer service and billing. And ultimately, you benefit from clean energy and local control. So this is where we show up on your bill. You have probably seen us before. Maybe you haven't kind of gone for the deep dive into your bill lately, but we are not an extra charge. So that's a really important thing to note here. We've replaced the generation portion of your electricity service, and we do this at a discount compared with PG&E's electricity generation cost. And since since 2017, we've actually saved our customers over $141 million on their bills. So overall, as an SVCE customer, you're getting clean electricity and oftentimes at a very cost competitive price. So as a quick recap, we generate the electricity, PG&E delivers it to your home. If you live in one of our communities, you're benefiting from clean electricity at competitive rates, and you get to take advantage of these rebates and programs that we're going to cover today. But before I go any further, we do have a quick pop quiz. And so this pop quiz should not be anything too surprising on here. I'll just put that out there first. I expect us to get a very high percentage of people completely acing this. So the quiz should show up right now on your Zoom. And there are a few different questions on there, a few different choices. So just take a quick read through them. and answer them. And it looks like we're up to 20% of folks having filled it out, 40%, 46%, 50%. So we'll give it another 30 seconds or so, or maybe a little less, to let everyone take a chance to fill this out and see if you figure out which is true from this list. All right, 10 last seconds here. It looks like almost 90% of you have already filled it out. So pretty much figured out how to do the poll. And we will close out the poll and share the results. So amazing job. Around 90% of you answered all of the above, and that is correct. So there it is. I think you can see that on your screen, and I will stop sharing the quiz now. We can keep going, but nice work. All right, let's jump ahead now and go into the why we go electric and how it helps you save. We'll talk a little about the technology, and then we'll go into the savings and the details there. But first, when we're talking about energy efficiency, when you talk about fossil fuels, and I think this is a number that really surprised us when we first saw it, is that almost 2/3 of carbon emissions in Santa Clara County come from fossil fuels used right in our homes and our cars. And what that really says is that in Santa Clara County, we're still relying mostly on burning gas to power things. And so we've run the numbers. If you break it down, that's like around 178,000 water heaters, 128,000 space heaters, 96,000 stoves, 81,000 dryers, and a little over 420,000 gas vehicles. And this means we have a large opportunity to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels with our own household decisions about what we use in our homes and about how we get around. So that brings us over to electrification or going electric and what it means. So going electric or electrification just means replacing old gas appliances in our homes and gas vehicles with ones that run on clean electricity that's on the grid. So when you think about your home and your car, these are some of your biggest investments. So when it's time to change them out, that's an opportune moment to go for something that is safer, more efficient, and is truly an upgrade. So when your water heater breaks and you have to replace it, I mean, it's a good time to get an energy efficient option that's safer and also cleaner for your family and your community. And you can see on this little chart here, it shows kind of some of the places within the home where you'll find equipment that can be swapped out or that just has an opportunity for an efficiency gain. So this is actually up on our website. And at the end of the presentation, we'll be talking a little bit about some of the resources there that include some educational pieces. All right, so what do all of these new energy efficient appliances look like? And the truth is they're not super new, but they are getting more and more popular, and heat pumps are one of the most efficient ways to heat and cool your home. And the bulk of the energy use is a fun fact. The bulk of the energy use in our homes goes towards heating our water and also heating our spaces and cooling our spaces. So heat pumps work like a refrigerator, which is actually a heat pump in and of itself. The difference is that they can go both ways. They can heat and cool. So what they do is they harvest heat from the surrounding air, and that's a lot more energy efficient, significantly more energy efficient than generating heat from combustion. And that's why they have this efficiency gain over gas heaters and gas water heaters. So if we look over here, let's see if these will show up on here. Heat pumps, a few fun facts on them: 3 to 4 times more efficient than gas heaters, work like your refrigerator, which we covered. And we've also looked at some bill analysis results recently, and they showed that when you pair a heat pump with an electrification-friendly rate plan, you can save somewhere between $250 and $350 or more per year in the form of bill savings. So that's pretty cool. Here's some other little fun facts. We'll skip ahead. And one other cool thing is that heat pumps are consistently outselling gas furnaces that just made this switch, I guess, in 2021, and it continues to improve over time. So the next technology we're going to talk about is the induction stove. And this is not your grandma or your grandpa's old electric resistant stove that you might remember while growing up. These work differently. Induction stoves use electromagnetic induction to generate heat within the cookware itself. So unlike gas and older electric stoves, induction actually heats the pot or pan directly, not the surface, and it's far more efficient, which is why it can boil water twice as fast, and we actually tested that ourselves in the office with portable induction burners. And one of the great things about induction stoves is that even for renters, you can switch and use a portable induction for most cooking needs when you don't need more than one burner at the same time. But when you need more, you may have to turn on the other burners. So a few fun facts: twice as fast to boil water. They keep your kitchen cooler because more of the energy is being used to actually cook and heat your food versus heating the air and the space around it. So only 40% or so, 40 to 50% in gas stoves goes to actually cooking the food. There's more precise temperature control. You can choose down to the degree on a lot of models, and they're also safer for pets and children. They improve your indoor air quality instead of having those combustion gases in your house. All right, enough on induction. Let's talk for a second about a common question that people ask: will my electric bill go up? And we see this quite a bit, and it is a valid question. So we want to think of this as a down, up, down. So gas usage will go down. The electricity portion of the bill will go up. And overall, we expect the bill will go down when it's paired with that electrification-friendly rate using heat pumps and induction. So that's one of the keys there, is switching to the rate that is friendly for electrification. And here's a little reminder of those savings that we've seen in the bill analysis. So beyond switching to a rate plan that's electrification friendly and knowing that some of this down, up, down will take place, you can achieve even greater bill savings with smart scheduling and behavior changes to run equipment during kind of the cleanest times of day when there's a lot of clean energy and lower cost electricity available on the grid. So during those off-peak hours. All right, and what about power outages? Here's another question, just to get this one out of the way. So this is also a common question, and it's also valid. But we want to remind folks that many gas appliances still require some electricity to run. So a power outage would affect those as well. There's actually a great benefit from a lot of these newer electric appliances and equipment. They enable smarter grid management. So by shifting their use to times that aren't peak, they can help the grid work smarter, not harder, being that flexible timing that they can do. And so they can take advantage when there's surplus renewables on the grid and reduce strain in the peak hours. Now we know outages are infrequent in our service area, which is just another good fact to mention. But residents are welcome to prepare and encouraged to repair by having a plan, keeping an emergency supply kit, and you can have a little bit more information. We'll be sending out this, like I mentioned earlier, we'll be sending out this recording, so you don't need to jot these links down necessarily. We'll also be sharing out a little follow-up email, and in that follow-up email, you should be able to ask any final questions, and we'll give you a resource to reach out to our Go Electric advisor. All right, so just a recap here: going electric has multiple benefits for your home, for your community, for your family. And the good news is there's a lot of help available to make the switch. We have rebates and tools available to make the process easier, and you don't need to do everything at once. You can, wait till approaching near end of life, but I know we're here to talk about the sunsetting tax credits as well and how those can be stacked with rebates. And so there could be upgrades that you want to consider before the end of the year, depending on your situation. And one final benefit here is that it's just a little bit different than the average sustainability advice that we all hear, eating less meat and recycling and a lot of good actions that we can take. These ones you don't make that often. And so, these ones have a big impact and it lasts a long time. So making this switch really does have a kind of a lasting effect, and is kind of it's just an infrequent purchase that we make. So we want to provide tools to make it as easy as possible for you. All right, we're going to switch to the next section here and talk about the tax credits. rebates and incentives available to electrify your home. And we'll also be sharing a tool that can help with getting quotes and finding contractors. And finally, we'll have some examples of the savings being stacked so you can visualize kind of how they go together. At a high level here, if we want to just look at the tax credits in order of expiration, you can see here that we have the one, so the one that's ending soonest is the EV one. I think most people are already aware of that for both the new EVs and the used EVs. Both of those are going to be ending at the end of this month. And then we'll have the heat pump water heater, weatherization installations, kind of the energy efficiency side of things, and electric panel home energy audit. That one will be for installations before end of year. And then rooftop solar for owned systems. The systems need to be fully installed by end of this year, but there are going to be options for leasing and PPA systems that can be installed through the end of 2027. So we'll talk about those. And then finally, we have EV chargers that have a little bit of a longer runway here. And just a note on all these, SVCE does not provide any kind of tax advice, just a disclaimer. That information is being provided to assist you in considering your options for electric upgrades, but definitely consult IRS documentation or your tax advisor for any official tax advice, because we aren't able to provide that here or in chat. All right, we will jump into some of the kind of stackable tax credits that align with what we offer when it comes to our home rebates for electric home upgrades. So you can see there that combined in a calendar year, you could receive up to $2,000 in a tax credit for heat pump water heater and or a heat pump heating and cooling system. And that would be based on the after rebate cost of the project. And so you can see our base rebates here for both of those items. For the heat pump water heater, $2,000. For heat pump heating cooling system, $2,500. And then there's an income qualified rebate as well that has a higher, has a little adder added into it, so a higher rebate amount. There isn't a federal tax credit for induction cooktop or ranges that are out there, but we do offer a base rebate for going over from gas to induction, and a higher one for income qualified. And then there's also some wiring and circuit splitters and pausers, which help you take advantage of the current amperage that you have in your panel, or run new circuits for some of these upgrades if you're switching over from gas to electric for things. And those also just have this per device amount that we provide. But we also have some add-ons, and one of those has a potential tax credit attached to it. That's the panel one. We have a base rebate and an income qualified rebate for that. And we have a pre-wiring rebate for EV charging. And then for folks who get the induction rebate from us, we actually have a rebate to help you buy cookware that works with induction. You can test your cookware with a magnet and see if it sticks to it. And that'll tell you if it's going to work with an induction stove or burner or range. But just in case, we have this rebate to help cover the cost of switching over to new cookware. And then we have a final one. So these ones don't have tax credits attached. But if you move over to all electric for your home, we actually have a gas meter removal bonus, which is a cool way to celebrate. So as I mentioned previously, we will share out the presentation. We'll also share out some of the key links, but there's a short link there for home rebates. And the process is that you would go and first you reserve the rebate. I mean, this is the ideal process. We want really people going this order. You'd reserve a rebate for the things you plan to change. You would make that improvement, and then you would claim the rebate. All right. On the note of claiming rebates, we launched a new tool in the last year called Assisted Home Upgrades. And this is a free portal. And the idea here is it makes it easier to apply for multiple incentives at once. So not only does it let you quickly apply for multiple rebates outside of the ones we offer, it also provides information on the tax credits. It can help calculate the amount that you may be eligible for if you qualify. And it helps generate quotes for the replacements through the platform and through contractors that have signed up to participate. So that's a cool way that you can compare quotes if you don't already have a contractor you want to work with. But regardless, I recommend taking a look at this tool. It just makes things easier. And we've been piloting it and having some good success over the past, I think it's been 6 to 12 months or so. All right. Next offering we want to mention is our emergency water heater replacement service that you may not know about. So if your water heater breaks and you need hot water again quickly, we have a service to help you restore your hot water. And one of the great things about it is if your home isn't ready, and the idea here is to switch to a heat pump water heater, I should mention that, from gas over to a heat pump water heater. But there's actually a free loaner gas water heater that can be provided if needed. And that would just be to give time to run a circuit or do any kind of changes or upgrades that are needed for a heat pump model. And we have transparent fixed pricing on this program. So pricing is fixed and our rebates are applied as part of the process. So save that link, and maybe at some point we'll send out a magnet. You can slap it on your water heater for if it causes issues and you can't fix them. And we can help you replace it with an efficient heat pump model. Oh, yes, final thing. If you are income qualified, we do have no cost upgrades for water heaters and other types of electrification measures as well. All right, we want to take a quick look at a first example here of stacking and saving. So this is an example of switching from a gas water heater to a heat pump model. We provided an upfront cost here based on 600 projects that we've had come through our pipeline that have applied for our rebates. We have our rebate, and a note that if you live in Milpitas or Mountain View, there's actually an additional rebate that stacks on top of that. So very cool that these local jurisdictions are offering some additional support. There's also a Tech Clean California rebate, and it's kind of well supplies last on these, and assisted home upgrades can help you apply to all of these at the same time. So we have an after rebates cost of $3,900 in this case, in this example, and it is just for illustrative purposes. And then of that $3,900, the tax credit would be applied to that post rebate and discount cost. And so that takes $1,170. There'd be $1,170 in a potential federal tax credit here. And so the end cost would be around $2,730 for this particular sample project. And that is cheaper or competitive with replacing a current water heater with a gas one. All right, we're gonna go look at another example. So here is a heat pump HVAC system, and this pricing we actually pulled from one of our fixed pricing programs, our full service home upgrades program, but it is just for illustrative purposes as well. Upfront cost for a 2-zone ductless mini split system, heat pump heating and cooling system, $9,800 minus the SVCE. This is the base rebate, not the income qualified one. Milpitas actually has another additional amount that just going through the same application process with us gets added on. But that's just for Milpitas. For everyone else, it'll be that $2,500 unless you're income qualified. And then there's the Tech Clean California, and you have an after rebate cost of $6,800. 30% of that would bring the cost down to about $4,410 for that dual zone mini split example system, which again, cheaper or competitive with polluting gas furnace, central heating system. And it also cools as well. So the great news about this is you get efficient heating, efficient cooling all in one. Now, there are actually 3 different ways that we offer our customers the ability to take advantage of our rebates. And so if you have a kind of simple project, you have a contractor in mind, you want to DIY your project, and you're not applying for maybe multiple incentives, we just have our self-service rebates pathway, very aptly named. But if you need a little bit help getting started, you go over to our assisted home upgrades tool that I mentioned already. And again, we'll be sharing this presentation, and this link to home upgrades will be in the follow-up email. So don't worry about scrambling to jot this down necessarily. And this is that online portal, matches you quotes, contractors, and helps you apply to multiple incentives all at once. And then we have a final opportunity that we haven't mentioned so far. That's our full service offering, where everything is handled. This is, you're busy, you just want someone else to take care of it for you. That's our full service offering. And that's everything from like assessment of what would be replaced to the installation permits, rebates being applied, all takes place during that. And again, feel free to drop your questions into our Q&A box, and we'd be more than happy, to answer them as we go. That's just at the bottom of your Zoom screen there. All right, we're going to shift gears and actually start talking about solar and battery now. And what we want to share is that we have a solar and battery assistant tool that helps you compare custom solar and battery quotes for your home. We have a short link here for that. And the great news is there's also support from unbiased energy advisors that are part of the process you can ask questions to. But since we're talking about tax credits sunsetting today, we want to mention that this 25D federal tax credit, the 30% for owned systems, means that systems need to be fully installed by end of year. And because we're getting late in this calendar year, there are some questions that are the folks who help us with this tool suggested asking. And one of those is, when is the expected installation dates? What are the options to basically cancellation options if the installer isn't able to get the project done by the end of the year? And if the preferred equipment, your preference for the panels, the inverter, isn't available, is there an option B that you could pre-approve just to try to expedite things? And going through our tool and finding out whether or not the installers that are featured there are able to help within this time frame might lead you to needing to ask outside of our tool, getting other quotes from local reputable installers to see if folks still have appointments and slots to be able to complete installations before end of year. The good news is that there will be some other ways to take advantage of the tax credits through installers in the future. And so that's the difference between the 25D and the 48E solar tax credits. So the first ones that are expiring at the end of this year are the ones that are claimed by the homeowner for systems that are purchased with cash or loan. And the other type are claimed by the actual installer, the installation company, through leases or power purchase agreements. And those systems just need to be installed by end of 2027. So giving it a couple extra years, which is good. And there's actually a differentiation for just battery projects, at least currently, and everything's subject to change. And that's why it's important to talk with a tax advisor and refer to IRS documentation. But the battery leases and PPAs will benefit at this time from the tax credit that can be basically claimed by the installer through 2033. So with any of this, feel free to talk to an energy advisor in our solar and battery assistant tool. And we wanted to provide a few examples of kind of what the potential 20-year savings could be depending on how a system is purchased or leased or a PPA agreement. So in this case, we were looking at the same solar system, just an example, 7 kilowatt solar system, 10 kilowatt hour battery. And we had that gross cost, being equal for those first two options there, which is a cash purchase, taking advantage of the tax credit that a homeowner would claim, and a cash purchase post that, so not installed by the end of this year, not taking advantage of the tax credit, and what the 20-year savings potential might look like. This is modeled by the folks who do our solar and battery assistant, just for illustrative purposes. And again, it will depend on the home and its energy use and the system size that's installed as well. Then we also have this prepaid PPA, power purchase agreement, where the installer takes advantage of the tax credit and factors it into the payments. And the maintenance, that's one benefit, is the maintenance is the installer's responsibility instead of the homeowner. And it still has significant savings potential there. And then we have 3 more examples. There's a lot of numbers in this section, so I'll try not to bore you too much with these, but there are a few additional things we want to talk about here. One is the loan option with claiming the tax credit by end of year. That's this first one on the left column there, and it's 20-year savings potential there. And then we have just having a loan with no tax credit. So after the end of this year, no tax credit, kind of what the savings potential would be for that one. And finally, a $0 down PPA agreement where the installer takes advantage of the tax credit. And the payment would be based on the actual power production. That's another one where the installer claims a tax credit, and that one would have, around a $40K savings potential based on this particular mock-up situation. So a lot of information on these. Don't expect anyone to get it, but I think that the takeaway we want to share is that the timeline is short. So if you're trying to take advantage of the own system one, time is of the essence for that. It's just finding an installer that can do it in the timeline may be tricky, and so you want to know your ways to be able to cancel or just know what the options are there. And going forward, there will be options still via the PPA or lease model where the installer is claiming the tax credit, and that there are still significant savings potentials with those options. All right, now we will truly shift gears and move into rebates and incentives for electric vehicles. So we're going to look at the EV rebate that we provide, saving on charging, and we'll also talk about stacking the rebates with tax credits and some of the other incentives and rebates that are out there. So first things first, we have something that's happening just this month. We are partnering with a local not-for-profit called Ride and Drive Clean on a limited time, this month only, EV discount campaign. And they're a Bay Area nonprofit, Ride and Drive Clean, that has been around for, I think, about 7 years, since 2018. And their whole goal is to make clean transportation more accessible. So they partner with local car dealers and negotiated some pricing that's lower than MSRP, and the savings are just passed on to the buyers. So you can visit our website that has these specific, negotiated discounted prices on the models that are shown. And the good news is that the discounts are stackable with the federal tax credits. So the acquisition of the car would still follow the same timeline by end of this month, but you could purchase or lease, and this just makes the buying process a little bit easier. I tested a call into them just to see, and they actually provide like one-on-one phone support, which was really nice. All right, we also have a couple final EV savings webinars with the same not-for-profit organization coming up. We have one this week in 2 days during the lunch hour, and then we have one next Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. in the evening. And so this will have EV experts on the call. They'll talk about the special campaign that they're doing, this discount campaign, kind of pros and cons between lease and buying, our incentive, the SVCE one, as well as other ones that are out there, plus the federal tax credits. So have a link here to sign up. We'll share this out in the follow-up email as well, and encourage you to join the webinar if you're considering an EV and are also considering taking advantage of the tax credit before it sunsets at the end of this month. Just another reminder, feel free to put your questions into the Q&A, and we will we'll get to you either during live, because some of the team is on this call with me, or at the end of the call, we'll go through any final ones together. The next rebate we want to talk about is we're in this EV section. So we're talking about our EV rebate. This one is for income qualified residents, and it is an instant rebate. So you can actually claim it point of sale at select dealerships or apply for it post-purchase. There is a cap on the price, the maximum price for it. And it can be an EV, plug-in hybrid, new or used, purchased or leased, and there are those income qualifications here, a couple of examples like household sizes and income levels, just so you get a sense. But on our EV rebate website has all the details there, so recommend you take a look if you think you may qualify for this one, and want to stack it with the federal tax credit and other savings that are out there. And some of those other savings that we're talking about are the new EV tax credit. So this one does have some caps on price, and it has the same requirement for the acquisition. This is the end of month acquisition date. The IRS did release some guidance on this, and I encourage, if you're looking into kind of what this might mean, they said that it's when a written binding contract is entered into and a payment has been made. Payment includes a nominal down payment or a vehicle trade-in. So look into the IRS's guidance for full kind of what could qualify to get in by end of month with the contract. But we just want to note here, there's specific EVs and plug-in hybrids that are eligible for this. You want to take a look. You can look at the eligibility at fueleconomy.gov. or other sources online if you look up which models are eligible. And there are income qualifications for the new EV tax credit. The used EV tax credit is $4,000, is also expiring end of month. It can be applied at point of sale at a dealership, up to 30% of the sale price. And there is a vehicle price cap. And there are also some model year requirements. It needs to be 2023 or older. So check with your car dealer or the IRS's website for all the details. And then there are different income qualifications for the used one, and the new one for these federal tax credits. PG&E also offers a used EV rebate. You can take a look at these at evrebates.pge.com. There's $1,000 standard one that we think our customers should be eligible, all of our customers, regardless of income. There's also the rebate plus, that's that higher amount for income qualified customers. This one needs to be applied for within 180 days, and it's only for used. In the last 2 or 3 weeks, since the first time we gave this webinar, actually, there was a release of this Clean Cars for All grant, and it's up to $12,000. There's a scrap and replace program that's part of this. There's some requirements on that, and there's also income qualifications. But if you think you may qualify, and these are quite a bit lower income qualifications, I believe, for this one as well. So if you are interested in another stackable incentive, it's kind of amazing. There's quite a few here. You need to apply for this one before purchase. You can take a look at the eligibility for it, like the full details, but we pulled out a few facts from it. And there's a range up to that $12,000 off the purchase price. All right, so let's get into some actual examples. This one's for illustrative purposes, but we did use our EV Finder tool just to pull this up in there. This is for a used EV with a range of 247 miles. It's a 2022 Chevy Bolt EUV, the larger of the two Bolts. And upfront cost that we estimated here was $17,000. In this case, we selected like a customer that was income qualified for our rebate, so that's that $2,000, and they would also in this case, have been eligible for the PG&E used one. We know that if depending on your income, it may just be the $1,000 amount one. So then you have your cost after rebates in this particular example, $11,000. Then 30% of that, which is that used EV tax credit, if you qualify. And so in this particular case, it would be a savings of over 50% on this particular example. And then we also have a new EV. So it's a 2025 Chevy Equinox EV, 320-ish mile range. And it has an MSRP of $33,800. We just applied our rebate. Again, income qualifications apply on that one. But even if you didn't, there is the new EV federal tax credit through end of month. That's the $7,500 there. So in this case, it is just the full amount. And so the total comes out to $24,300 on this one, with like a pretty decent range and a good savings off MSRP between the two different programs. All right, so once you have an EV, you've switched over and you're enjoying some of the benefits of electric vehicles. How do you save on charging? And so there's a few different options out there. I mean, one, there's some actual incentives for charging equipment, depending on if you're income qualified or not, from PG&E. We have our own app called GridShift that we partner on, and that one helps you sync charging to the cheapest times and a lot of times the cleanest times of day, participating in low carbon charge events. And there's actually a $50 sign-up bonus on that one. There's also, and this one is crucial, switching over to an electric vehicle rate plan for most folks to make sure that you have discounted electricity for charging. And then if you live in a multi-family apartment or condo building, this is something that could be brought to an HOA or property owner manager. We actually have a large multi-family EV charging incentive that helps pay for the cost of installing chargers at multi-family complexes, because we know that having that accessible charging is important. So just want to make a plug for that here, even though this is a residential focused webinar. Here's just a really quick comparison that we have here because we know just buying a vehicle is only part of the cost. And so looking at the cost of ownership, um, cost of maintenance with EVs tends to be lower overall, and it also just has fewer parts in an EV. So less service visits, no oil changes. And you can actually visit our EV finder that's plugged there at the bottom. And again, we'll share it out in the follow-up email. And you can go look and play around with different vehicles and compare them with gas-powered vehicles just to see what approximate savings might look like. And in this particular case, we were looking at a Hyundai Ioniq 6 and a Hyundai Sonata. All right. Now I'm just doing a time check. I know we said about 45 minutes and we're just around 40 minutes in. I think we're here in the last section. What I want to do is just summarize some of the resources you can use to get started and also ways you can get help if you need it with your upgrade. So I think we mentioned our overall website and some of our home upgrades, but I think if there's one thing you remember from this entire presentation, it's remember our eHub. Silicon Valley Clean Energy eHub. Probably just Google it, it should come right up. This will get you all the rebate information and resources that are the ones that we talked about today. You can use it, you can put some information in the incentives finder that's featured on our eHub to filter down the incentives you're likely to be eligible for. But we know that sometimes you might want to talk to a real person, and we actually have a service for that too. We have our Go Electric Advisor service. It's free. It is unbiased. We're paying for this service for customers to be able to ask questions about electrification. And so you can talk to an energy expert. And the great thing is you can talk to them over a live chat on the phone, or you can email as well. Live chat hours are 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. So if it's outside of those hours, like right now, you can still send an email or you can jump on and ask during the day. We have the EV Finder tool we mentioned that has actually a list of different incentives that are available, some charging station information, and that cost comparison. It has a real feed of used and new EVs from local dealerships built into it as well. And then last but not least on this slide, we have the assisted home upgrades tool that I've plugged a couple of times today, which is that tool that lets you find some contractors, get quotes, and it also lets you apply to multiple incentives, identifying what they are with the same application, which is, I think one of the main selling points, right? Just making it a little easier to apply to for multiple things at once, and it can help calculate kind of what the likely tax credit is, although of course everyone's situation is different for that. But the tool is able to do that and estimate it as well. So that said, I just want to thank everyone who joined us today at this later webinar session. Really appreciate it. If someone on the team could put our survey link into the chat, please, that'd be great because we'd love to get your feedback. And just a reminder that you will be entered to win a $100 bill credit just for answering that survey. Definitely appreciate your feedback, and we want to make these sessions as useful as possible, even without overwhelming, hopefully, either. And just a recap here. So we have these different resources. There's a great tax credit guide from Rewiring America. We have a page that's dedicated to federal and state rebates, tax credits, and incentives. There's that solar and battery assistant. There's our home upgrades that lets you choose different pathways, including assisted home upgrades or just the DIY option for our rebates that we talked about. The EV Finder tool, our incentive finder on eHub, which is that one thing to remember from today, at least one of them, and our Go Electric Advisor. If you have questions still, need some help figuring out a electrification plan or about equipment or incentives, that's why we have that service available to you. So we hope you can take advantage of them. And again, I'm going to check really quickly to see if there's any last questions. Feel free to drop them in the Q&A. And thanks again so much for completing that survey. Really appreciate it. It helps us for the future sessions. And I think it looks like all of the 13 question and answers are all in on here. So it looks like that's pretty much done. So that said, thanks again for joining. Hope you have a great rest of your evening and a good dinner. And we will hopefully see you at the next webinar sometime.